right.
We live? All right, we're a little early, but seeing as not really seeing anybody else walk in, I'm just going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you, everybody, for coming to this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals here in the city of Pataskala. Today is Tuesday, December 10th, 2024. Like I said, we're a little before 6:30, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to see if everybody would join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Colvin.
Here.
Mr. Cooper.
Here.
Mr. Danduran.
Here.
Mr. Howell. Mr. Jemison.
Here. All right, it seems we do have a quorum, so we can go ahead and continue here. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right into old business. It seems we have two applications on the table today. The first is conditional use 24-002. Looks like we're going to keep that one on the table for today, so we'll go ahead and skip past that. Then we also have variance application VA-24-012. They're looking to remove it from the table. Does anybody have any discussion? I did have some points, but I wanted to see if anybody had anything else to discuss before we discuss this any further. So the only thing I wanted to bring up with this one is, so I was just looking, I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to look through the report. It appears that the applicant, there's still the tree report in there, but really the only difference in the application that we've had is just the removal of the rear setback. The two side setbacks are still going to be the same, or they've been reduced to 10 feet, I believe it is at this. They're requesting a 10-foot setback versus the 25 that's currently in place. But the problem I'm coming across as I look through here is that there's going to be some screening issues we need to address as part of that. They're looking to put a fence in and then use some of the existing trees. Now, we still have the existing tree survey that we've had from the past prior couple applications, but we don't know what trees are going to be removed as part of the construction of this parking lot. I wasn't sure. I think what we're going to ultimately have to do, because we're going to have to address what trees are getting removed in the as part of this application process. And, there's still the issue of the stormwater drainage. It doesn't appear that there's any retention plans that have been included that I've seen in the application from the applicant. So I wanted to at least propose to the group if we wanted to keep this on the table and request that the applicant submit those items, or if we wanted to try to address that as a condition of the of this variance. But I will leave that up to the board.
I haven't seen anything in this report about the fate of these trees or not.
No, the only so the issue I'm having, so if you flip over to the overall map of them, is they're going to have screening around here as part of they're going to have L2 or L3 in this east and west setbacks code. And we don't know which ones of these trees are going to get removed because they're going to cut into these.
Yep.
So we can either address it as part of we could address it as a condition, but it's whatever we want to do. Or we can also say, let's get that addressed before we vote on it too. Because really everything else is the same from what we saw the last time.
I think we got more, but I'd like to know that beforehand.
Right. And we still don't know what's going on with the stormwater. Because
Stormwater is part of would not be part of what that would be addressed in further application.
And that's
right?
fine. And that's
So
why I'm putting it before the board.
Yeah, I don't think it's more about the easement and how much
Right.
what will it do to the existing tree lines.
Okay.
That's my view.
No, that's fine. I wanted to bring it up to the board just because if we wanted to vote on it tonight or try to, work with the applicant on it tonight, we can. Otherwise, I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that, we still don't really know what's going on with the screening, and that's going to be a key part of our decision.
Is he here?
Is he? You can go ahead on up. Just make sure you get sworn in, please.
Yeah, before we didn't have any,
Discussion with the,
Yeah.
okay.
it's either remove.
So do we want to remove it from table or do we want to?
I mean, is that the applicant's desire?
Yes. they're
Yeah,
asking that
they'd like to
remove from-
remove it from
yeah.
table. but-
Okay.
Okay.
Then I don't have an
Okay,
issue with that
well,
until the-
In that case, could I get a motion to remove from the table?
So moved.
And then a second?
Second,
Could I get a roll, please?
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Jennison,
Yes.
Mr. Danaher.
yes.
All right.
So we can move on to the staff report as we typically do, or if you'd like to speak with the applicant at this time, we can do that.
Let's go ahead and start with the applicant, just since we're fairly familiar, I feel, at this point with this application. So if you could go ahead and get sworn in, please. Thank you.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And then could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Richard Main. My address is 23 East Church Street, Newark, Ohio.
All right, thank you.
So I'm the attorney for Nyland Enterprises. Tyler Nyland's here as well, but given the crowd, we didn't
Sure,
see any
sure.
photos come
Fair
up.
enough.
Regarding the revision to our application and the screening, we're aware that as part of the TCOD process, which I know is after this,
Sure.
there are certain screening requirements that are going to be part of that as well, whether that's L3 or L4 screening.
Mhm.
And that the fence is going to play a role in the screening, and then as part of that process, it will need to be determined what trees are going to need to be left up, what's going to need to be changed or added to meet those requirements. I guess our request is that the application be considered kind of as is. The plan is once we receive either a up or down on this variance, we can move forward with having more specific plans put together that include things like stormwater, that include the updated setbacks. We have the stream on the north side of the property that we have to plan around. And so that's.
Okay, I mean, I can understand where you're coming from. I guess the concern I have, I mean, as has been mentioned previously, and I don't speak for the board here. I mean, I understand that the stormwater is not necessarily what is being covered in our jurisdiction here today, but I mean, it seems that we could at least know what trees are going to be taken down at this point, regardless of where we're voting on this or not. That's just my opinion, just because it's just drawing X's and stuff like that. I mean, at this point, we know where things lie. I mean, that's just my opinion. I won't speak for the board, but does anybody else have any questions for?
My concern is not how you screen it. You're gonna screen it whether what trees are there. It's the question of going from 25 to 15. What impact does that have on the side, on the trees? I think that's been our question, I think.
So, and just to clarify, it's 25 to 10.
25 to 10, sorry. Yeah.
What, I guess, I didn't quite understand your question.
Well, I think what we've asked previous meetings is to show a plan of what trees would be impacted in that 15 feet.
So the other part of this, which limits the impact on the neighboring properties, is while those are residentially zoned properties, one is a church and one is a vacant lot that's landlocked by other parcels. There's no residential properties that sit on those. That played a role in our decision to
Sure.
request the 10-foot setback variances. We're not coming within 10 feet of a property line of a residence. It's the church, which is clear on the eastern side of their property. We're confident that the impact on the neighboring properties would be very limited by the change in the setback.
Okay. And I mean, I can respect that. I guess the thing, and you've been to a couple of these now. I think one of the things you've probably heard us bring up is it is a precedent thing to some degree. Usually it seems to be signs, not trees, but we let you guys do it. It'll be what'll happen when the next guy asks. And that won't necessarily be a church on the east side of a property versus, an empty piece of lot. So, I think in my opinion, I'd really like to see that what trees are being taken out delineated for us before we vote on it. Or, I mean, if you really want us to vote on it as it is today, I mean, we can do that, but that's up to you as the
Could you
applicant.
give me 2 seconds?
Yes. Yeah, I don't want to do these conditions.
Jack,
In my
can I ask
opinion.
you, the setbacks are on the sides only now, is that correct? Facing the side. So the vacant landlocked lot and the church lot.
Thank you. So it's our position that if we're required to have an L4 screening as part of the DCOD process, that's going to be in place regardless of what trees are left up per the setback variance. So we'd ask that the board kind of move forward.
So you would like us to vote as is?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Not this thing.
Okay. All right, hearing no further questions, is there any further discussion we want to have before I move to findings of fact?
Do you guys want to look at the staff report?
Or yeah, do we want to go over? Yeah, let's go over this.
Make sure.
Yeah, just so we're considering all of it.
So, like you said, this is BA 24-0112. Location of this is at 14652 East Broad Street. Total acreage is just over 3.3. Zone general business, and they're requesting approval of a variance from section 1249.05 C2B to reduce the required side yard setback when abutting a residential zoning district from 25 feet to 10 feet. So look up here, these are the parcels in question. There's 2 parcels here, the main frontage of Broad Street and the remaining acreage in the rear. So again, there's 2 parcels totaling 3.33 acres. Proposal is to develop the site as boat and RV storage. They did have a conditional use approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals in March of this year. They also, so as far as the site plan goes, there's a 2-way access to Broad Street. It's 30 feet wide, paved asphalt. The main storage area is going to be paved with asphalt millings that did need a variance, which got approved last month by the Board of Zoning Appeals. Setbacks are proposed at 10 feet from all property lines, excepting the south side of the rear parcel, which is 23 feet. Setback adjacent to residential is 25 feet paving, so that's a variance. Here's the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. So we got the paved access from Broad Street opening up to the asphalt milling storage area for boat and RVs back here. So the storage area does cross the stream, which is proposed to be piped in by a concrete culvert. There's light poles interspersed throughout the storage area. They're proposing L2 along the frontage. The entire lot surrounded by a 6-foot high fence. So the applicant did propose using some of those existing trees on screening on the east and west. Here's a closer look at the front part of the parcel. So you have Broad Street here, the access, and then some parking areas here. This is the stream that exists right now. One of the streams, excuse me, and the remaining parking area in the rear. This is the fence type that was submitted that they want to use. So the applicant's narrative, they said that they believe there will be adequate screening with reduced side yard setback by way of existing trees and the 6-foot privacy fence that will be installed. They believe there will be no negative impact to adjacent properties as the proposed use to slow traffic. They also stated that the variance is necessary as they would have to remove about 22 of the proposed spaces by complying with required side yard setback. And further stated they believe the request is not substantial and that they were not aware of the zoning restrictions on the property was purchased. Also included with the application is that tree survey showing the type, location, condition, and diameter of existing trees on the rear property, a jurisdictional waters delineation report, and photographs of the existing trees and vegetation on the property. And here are some of the photographs that were submitted by the applicant of those existing trees. And the tree survey here showing the location and type of the trees. So again, the variance for the asphalt millings was approved last month. They did amend this request to only be for the reduction of the side yard setback. So they removed the request for the reduction of the rear yard setback. So from 25 to 10 feet. So when this does go forward, that rear yard setback for paving has to be 25 feet. That request has been removed from this application. It's just for the east and west sides of the property. 124905 C2B states that when adjacent to residential zoning district, uses in the general business district shall have a side yard setback of 25 feet for paved areas and 35 feet for structures. No structures proposed, but the edge of the paved areas are proposed at 10 feet from the east and west property lines. So the request is for a reduction of 15 feet or 60%. Per the narrative, there are existing trees on the east and west side of the applicant. They intend to use it as screening, so staff, so the tree survey does not identify which trees would be removed by construction with the proposed 10-foot setback. They also submitted a site plan that remains unchanged from the previous request. So although the request for the rear yard setback has been removed, staff would like to see an updated plan showing the current proposal along with details on how the storm wall will be handled. There is a second blue line stream on the property that was not identified on the plans, but is in that jurisdictional waters report they submitted. That's about 34 feet south of the north property line. So even with that code minimum setback of 25 feet, they'd likely be impacting that. And as such, they'll have to get permitting either through the Corps of Engineers, the OPA prior to construction, and we'll need to supply that to the city. So should the variance be approved, the next step is the TCOD application through the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Public Service Department had the following comments. So before any work within 25 feet of either stream can begin, approvals from the United States Army Corps of Engineers or the Ohio EPA are required and must be submitted to the city. The proposed site plan does not show the second stream and still shows a 10-foot rear yard setback. And they say that traffic was personally addressed. However, a study may still be required. City engineer had the following comments. Again, there's two streams on the property, one of which is not shown on the plans. Engineer believes disturbing both streams would not be reasonable. They still need to have stormwater calculations, which will be reviewed as part of the construction plans. And it's the engineer's opinion that the current site layout attempts to maximize space beyond the intent of current regulations. They didn't receive any comments from any other departments or agencies on this application. Surrounding properties to the east, you have general business and R20B, density residential, which the R20 is the church, the GB is the CPA's office to the east of the front parcel. On the south, across Broad Street, you have general business and multifamily residential, which are apartments and mini warehouses. To the west, you have general business and R20 again, which are single family homes and that vacant lot in the rear. There are your findings of fact for an area variance. They're also printed in your staff report there. So should the board choose to approve the applicant's request, following conditions may be considered. They obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and the Clinton County Building Code Department within 1 year of the date of approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Still back to where we were.
Any questions?
No.
Yeah, is there anybody who would like to speak on this matter before we move forward? Anybody else? All right, hearing none. Any further discussion before we move forward?
Any comments from neighbors?
I've not received any.
All right.
My view is there is no other comments to complaints. They're going to provide the screening, so I mean, there could be a ton of trees in the middle, right? So
Okay.
that's my
No.
comments for the group, but
The way I look at it, the one side is landlocked. There's nothing there
Mhm.
currently, and it's owned by a development corporation.
Sure.
anyhow.
Okay.
The other side's owned by a church. And it looks like they've taken the trees out all the way up to their property line, so he's planning on keeping some there.
No, I think that's fair. I just,
And the rest of it that we have issues with that we've talked about, so it sounds like it's gonna be taken care of with TCOD anyhow. They're
okay.
Right.
doing all that.
So do we want to go ahead and move forward with findings of fact then, or?
I'm good with it.
I'm fine.
All right, so I'll move forward with findings of fact. So this is findings of fact for application number VA-24-012. The first, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property. I'm going to go ahead and say yes for that. Whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibit the property being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. I would say they could build it within what we're asking, so I'm going to go ahead and say no.
I would agree.
Okay. Whether the variance requested is substantial, just going by our typical 50%, I'm going to say yes.
60%.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. So then D, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer substantial detriment as a result of the variance. Since it's the side yard properties, I would say in this case, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a problem.
I say no.
I
So
say
I'm going
no.
to say no.
They didn't say it was gonna be a problem.
Right. Yeah. E, whether the variance if granted will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property. I'm going to say it's not going to have any effect.
I would say no.
Whether the variance, if granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare shouldn't have any effect, at least not for what we're discussing today.
Agreed.
G, whether the variance, if granted, would adversely affect the delivery of government services. I see no impact there, so I'm going to say no. H, whether the property owner purchased the subject property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. He testified that he did not. I, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method than variance. Again, I think similar to what we've answered already, they could build it within the zoning as listed. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. J, whether the variance, if granted, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the requirement at issue. The variance, if granted, will represent. Again, I think that's a no because they could build it within the zoning code.
I agree.
Okay.
All right. And then K, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance.
I'd say yes.
Yeah, I think I'm good there. All right, so I have yes for A, C, I, and K, and then no for B, D, E, F, G, H, and J. Any further discussion? All right,
No.
can I get a motion then?
I move to approve the variance request for variance application VA 24-012 with the following conditions. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and Licking County Building Department within 1 year of the date of approval.
I'll second.
All right, I got a motion and a second. Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Jandarin,
Yes.
Mr. Jemison,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Nyland, your application has been approved. Staff will be in contact. You don't have to stay, but you're welcome to if you'd like. All right. Next on the agenda, we're going to go ahead and move to new business, starting with variance application VA 24-020. Jack?
Of course, the location of this is at 350 Shawnee Loop South. It's currently zoned R7 Village Single Family Residential. The applicant's requesting approval of variance from section 1221.07 B1I to allow for a patio to encroach into the front yard setback. Take a look up here. This is the parcel in question outlined in yellow. We've got Shawnee Drive here on the east. Shawnee Loop, excuse me. So the property is lot 146 of the Brightwaters Phase 7 Part 2 subdivision, occupied by a single-family home built in 2004. The access is via its only frontage east onto Shawnee Loop South. So here's kind of a closer look at the existing conditions on the lot. Proposal is to construct a paver patio about 12 feet wide across the front of the home, projecting 9 feet forward of the house with a 32-inch wide walkway from the patio around the south side of the home to the existing fence gate, with the area between the home and the sidewalk to be landscaped. Here's the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. So we have the existing house and driveway, and they want to put a patio on the front along with that walkway wrapping around the side here. to their fence gate in the back. So the front edge of that patio is proposed at 18 feet 6 inches from the front property line. Pursuant to code, decks and patios shall meet the front yard setback of the zoning district in which they are located. In R7, this is 25 feet. So the narrative statement that was submitted by the applicant, they stated that it desires to improve the property's curb appeal to allow them to engage with neighbors. The applicant believes the request is not significant, would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood, and that no properties would suffer a detriment as a result. They also stated that they were aware of the zoning restrictions, but they believe the spirit and intent of the code would be observed in granting the request. As part of our review, staff would offer the following comments. Section 1221.07B1I states that the deck and patios have to meet the front yard setback. In R7, this is 25 feet. They're proposed at 18 feet 6 inches, so the request is for the patio to encroach 6 feet 6 inches into the setback or a decrease of 26%. To review, reviewed the site plan, all it meets other applicable sections of code, so no further comments from staff on that. Did not receive any other comments from any other applicable departments or agencies. Surrounding properties are all zoned R7 Village Single Family Residential. They're all single family homes except for on the west side behind the house, you have the Pataskala Municipal Park. Findings of fact for an area variance are also printed in your staff reports there. So should the board choose to approve the applicant's request, following conditions may be considered. They get all necessary permits from the city and the county within 1 year of the date of approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
I do not. It's pretty straightforward.
Any other questions for staff?
No.
All right, is Ms. Hunt here by chance? If you'd like to come up, do you have anything you'd like to add? You don't have to speak if you don't want to. It's just if you have anything you'd like to add.
No.
All right, then you can go ahead. We'll keep moving on. Thank you. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
If you guys want to just, I'm good to move. Yeah, it's not that much, so.
No comments from neighbors, right?
Any comments from neighbors at all?
I have not received that.
Okay. All right, I don't have any requests for them, so. Yeah, if no further discussion, I'm going to go ahead and move forward to findings of fact, I think.
Do we know if she knew about the variance?
Yeah.
She said that.
She did that.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move into findings of fact. So this is findings of fact for VA-24-020. Great one. So A, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. B, whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibit the property being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. I don't think there's really unique physical circumstances. They could just not build it per se.
Right.
So I'm going to say no. Whether the variance request is substantial, I'm going to say no there. Whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance, I don't see how this really hurts them at all. E, whether the variance, if granted, will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property, that should be no, should have no effect. F, whether the variance, if granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare, again, no effect. G, whether the variance, if granted, would adversely affect the delivery of government services, going to say no. H, whether the property owner purchased the subject property with knowledge of the zoning restriction. She testified that she did. So I'm going to mark yes for H. I, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method than variance. I'm going to say, in theory, yes, they could build a smaller one. J, whether the variance, if granted, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification of the possible of the requirement issue. I think that's really the same answer as I, but in this case, it would be no. Yeah, correct. And then K, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. I do.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have yes for A, H, I, and K, and then no for B, C, D, E, F, G, and J. With that, could I get a motion, please?
I move to approve variance from section 1221.07B1I for variance application VA 24-020 with the following condition. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and the Licking County Building Code Department within 1 year of the date of approval.
I'll second that.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Jennison,
Yes.
Mr. Vanderian,
Yes.
Mr. Haber,
Yes?
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
All right. Application VA-24-020 has been approved. Enjoy your patio. You are welcome to stay if you'd like, but you don't have to.
I do not plan to.
All right, perfect. All right, moving on. The next application we have on the docket today is going to be application VA-24-021. Jack?
Of course, so location of this is at 3945 Headley's Mill Road Southwest. Total acreage is just over 21. Both properties are zoned agricultural, and the applicant is requesting approval of a use variance pursuant to section 1211.07B Pataskala Code to allow for the establishment of a wellness center on 2 properties. So look up here, these are the properties in question. We got the main one with the house up here. We also have a second property here with this pasture area and woods just to the south of it. So again, there's 2 properties. There's 3945 Headley's Mill Road Southwest, currently 10 acres in size, zoned agricultural, occupied by a single family home, a pole barn, and a detached garage. The second property doesn't have an address assigned to it, but that's 11.22 acres, currently zoned agricultural and has no structures present on site. Here's a closer look at the existing conditions on the property. So this is looking in the north of the property here. So we have the house. There's a horse barn back here and the detached garage. Over the driveway, shared driveway coming down here. Through the south property with the pasture area and woods. And that'll be Headley's Mill Road down here. So the proposal is for a use variance. So they'd like to establish a wellness farm on site that was described by the applicant as a unique one-of-a-kind approach to wellness that integrates all 4 bodies, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, while providing natural sanctuary for people to engage with each other, including activities such as yoga, sound bath, mushroom picking, meditation, walking trails, contrast therapy, a tea garden, and retail tea shop for guests. The proposed use would be best classified under the North American Industry Classification System 2007 that the city uses as 812199, that is other personal care services, which is described as establishments primarily engaged in providing personal care services except for hair, dental, facial, non-permanent makeup, or non-medical diet and weight reduction services. That use is not permitted in the agricultural zoning district. As such, they have requested a use variance in this case. So they've said they're not proposing any additional structures on the site aside from several walking trails around the lower pasture on the south end of the property. They do want to build a tea garden beside the existing horse barn on the north side of the property, and that the existing home is to be renovated to include treatment rooms, group activity spaces, guest check-in, a little retail area for the tea garden, a small kitchen, and a small living quarters for an eventual groundskeeper. Here's a look at the site plan that was submitted by the applicants. They haven't shown any new structures, just these walking trails here coming down from the horse barn around the house through the woods to the pasture area here. And here's kind of look at the interior renovations they were thinking of for the main house and the horse barn here. So that's also in your staff report there. So the proposal is, again, it's for a use variance. North Lawn, they stated they want to utilize that as an outdoor space for yoga classes, and that the horse barn can be retrofitted with private therapy rooms as well as a small office. In the narrative statement that was submitted by the applicant, they stated their hours of operation are planned to be from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sundays. They envision around 3 full-time employees, that being the 2 applicants themselves and potentially the general manager, and potentially 8 to 10 part-time employees. The class scheduling would dictate the number of clients per day, with group offerings such as yoga potentially having as many as 15 on site at any time. The applicants say that there is space to accommodate at least 30 vehicles, but they do not envision having that many people on site at any one time. They also say there's going to be no overnight stays, and they want to work with their neighbors to allow for them to graze their animals on the lower pasture area. Further stated, they did not believe there would not be another zoning district that would allow for the proposed use. They also have said that the nature of the use variance only permitting one specific use and reverting to its original residential use if ever discontinued would help protect neighboring property against potentially harmful future uses. They also believe the request would not alter or impair the use or development of adjacent property, and they were aware of the zoning restrictions when the property was purchased. So as part of our review, staff would offer the following comments. Again, use code 812199, other personal care services is not permitted in the AG agricultural zoning district. It's actually only permitted in downtown business, which is property is ineligible to be zoned as it's not within the Pataskala Old Village area. So there's no existing zoning district in which property may be zoned that would allow for that proposed use. Section 1283.07B, so non-residential uses in the ag district aren't required to provide perimeter screening. There is some existing wooded areas on the east, west, and south sides of the property. 1291.02A1 states that no use shall be established without permanent maintained off-street parking. The applicants say that they estimate space for about 30 vehicles. However, they didn't identify where those would be on the site plan. There is a small area north of the home that's 84 feet wide and could accommodate about 9 vehicles, but we want to know where the rest of those are going to be parked on site. Applicant also made mention of a southern pasture area, a tea garden, a north lawn, and a yoga dome. So staff would like to see an updated site plan showing details such as the locations, dimensions of these items, including the ones mentioned above, but not limited to that, and the parking area as well. This is also not within the business sign district, so if they do want to put a sign up, it either has to be 2 square feet if it's within 15 feet of the right of way, or 6 square feet if it's outside that 15-foot zone. Didn't receive any comments from any departments or agencies on this application. We did receive one neighbor comment in the form of a letter today, which is on your dais there. That's from Jennifer and Dan Queen at 3931 Headley's Mill Road, expressing their support for the application. Surrounding properties to the south, east, north, and west are all zoned agricultural, and they're all used for single-family homes. So they're findings of fact for a variance. However, since this is also a use variance, in addition to those factors identified previously, section 1211.07B of the Pataskala Code states that the following additional factors shall be considered when determining whether a use variance is warranted. It's the intent of these factors alone to prevent a property owner from attempting to request a use variance rather than engage in the rezoning process. So that be the applicant owner created the alleged hardship, B, the board finds that the application is primarily made for the purposes of convenience or profit, or C, that a substantial ground offered in support of an application for a use variance is the existence of other non-conforming use of neighboring land structures or buildings in the same zoning district or other zoning districts. So should the board choose to approve the applicant's request, the following conditions may be considered: that the applicant address all comments from planning and zoning staff, and that they get all necessary permits from the city and the county within 1 year of the date of approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
You have the same concerns as I have, or same questions. Yoga dome, parking, yeah. Anything additional?
Thank you. You know where I was going.
So there are other only option
Thank you.
to.
No, you're good. You're good. Thank you.
So the only zoning district that actually allows for the use is downtown business, and that's limited by the code. That's only for the old village area. So they couldn't rezone this to downtown business. They, I guess, potentially could do it as a planned development district.
Yeah, okay.
So then you run into issues with spot zoning because it's an
Yeah,
island
no,
plan
no,
district.
yeah. I mean, it was kind of mentioned in that last piece, so, okay.
Yeah, so basically the use in this case is just allowing this particular application to work. Anything
Right, yeah.
else, it's
So
a whole new
just be
ballgame.
everything within the scope of this application.
Right.
So for example, if this use were to go away, it's still zoned residential. It could be used as a residence, but it couldn't be changed to anything else aside from what's in the application. Otherwise, they'll have to come back and get the use variance.
And then just because it's a wellness center, I guess one of the things and maybe I missed it in the conditions, I imagine we can put a condition on there as well, just to kind of work in that same vein to say that we're really looking at exactly what's in here. So that way, if they were to change kind of the scope of what rehab means,
You could stick a
Okay.
condition in there that says, it's limited specifically to the uses that were enumerated in the application.
Okay. Okay.
Does the use stay with the applicant? Or if there's a new person came
It's
in?
just for this applicant, for this specific use.
So, okay, if they went away, someone else couldn't come in and
Take over.
It
If
reverts
they
back to
wanted to, they'd
residential.
have to come
come back for another application.
Yeah. All right, any other questions for staff? All right, so I've got some speaker request forms. I'm gonna go ahead and start with what appears to be the applicants. I've got Dwayne and Pamela. Would you both like to speak or just one, or either way is fine? If you're planning to speak, if you could just go ahead and get sworn in, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, I did.
All right, and if you could just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Pamela Siekman, and I'm at 3937 Headley's Mill Road. My husband.
And Dwayne Siekman at 3937 Hedges Mill Road.
Excellent, excellent. So you guys have heard Jack's presentation. You should have also received a copy of the staff report prior to this meeting. Is there anything you'd like to change, edit, add? Any other further comments?
Couple of questions. Yeah, so we are the shared drive. The three properties that are in that shared drive, the Queens that sent the letter, we're the house in the middle, and then we're purchasing 3945.
Okay.
So just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then we're set to close on the property on Friday.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. I was just I wanted to thank the staff and the city for work in helping us figure out a solution to this. And we did think the use variance made sense because we're not changing permanently any rezoning. It does stick with us, and as was mentioned, and that we would be adhering to this specific use, and it would revert back again otherwise.
Right.
I thought maybe I would clarify a couple things because I know I call it the yoga dome. So that's my affectionate term because
Sure.
the room is round. So, so I just wanted to clarify that we're not building like a big dome structure or anything off to the
Sure.
side. It's just retrofitting it.
Okay.
It's a 3 Seasons room now, so we would be conditioning that.
Okay.
And it's roughly $1 million renovation for the home. And so I thought I'd clarify that. The tea garden is planting herbs and flowers in the back pasture area. So hopefully my green thumb is successful and
Sure.
I can harvest those herbs and blend some teas. So I wanted to just mention that. The parking, yes, we have our just initial design plans.
Right.
There's some area, there's a lot of space in there outside from the horse barn where we would put extra parking in, but we would absolutely work with staff on showing better designs on that. We recognize that that's not fully fleshed out as far as drawings and renderings. And then I had to try to
I
think
think
if
the
there was.
one on the walking trails, the
Oh,
trails
yes,
and
sorry,
the
the
drawing, that was a rudimentary
path.
drawing
Sure.
that I put together. When
Sure.
we put walking paths on our property at 3937, I had someone coming out with GPS and we made sure we walked, that we didn't traverse anybody else's
Right.
property line. The nice thing about our property in 3937, the whole property is staked out. So we were fortunate that we could see exactly where the line was. But he does have that GPS capability. So again, it's all from the house to the front pasture. And that's important to us that no activity will take place in the evenings. It'll just be
Okay.
daylight. It'll be for
Appointment based.
appointment based. Everything's appointment based. Everything's membership based at our wellness farm. And it's really something that if you see the property in the area, I think Headley's Mill in general is just the most serene and tranquil environment when you have that opportunity. And we are big believers in nature is a solution to a lot of health problems.
Okay.
Or it can be a solution to health problems. And so it's important to us that the wellness farm remains that tranquil, that it's
Okay.
not disruptive to the area. And we understand a letter, this morning we learned a letter went out to surrounding homeowners. And so we're anxious to hear what the concerns are in the area. We want to work with everybody. We've been successful in small businesses around the state. And a big part of that is because we're good neighbors and we work with everybody.
Bring the business and tax dollars and a unique holistic wellness solution to the residents.
Excellent, excellent. All
Thank
right.
you for listening and
Yeah.
supporting.
I think this is a very unique vision.
Yeah.
Curious, do you have any experience running this type of business anywhere else?
Well, it's our personal lifestyle and living it, and so being a customer on the other side through many years, and living that way. We do have retail experience, so we have put a lot of standard operating procedures together. We've worked on zoning issues before as well. We've hired employees. We have provided employee manuals. We also have a really unique business consultant that will help us further write our practitioner manual and this philosophy of care that
Okay.
we're building that treats the whole body. So
Excellent.
I would say about 50 years of experience.
Sure.
Fair enough.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
No,
You reside at 3937.
Yes.
That's correct,
So
yes.
this one is.
Yeah, so that shared drive is the 3 properties, 3931, 3937, 3945.
Okay.
And the Queens are just to the south of us.
North.
North.
Do you have an idea where the parking's gonna be?
Yeah, if you put
Yeah.
that up, I don't know if I can walk up there. So we have this current, and you can see two, move your cursor to
That-
the right. of the
Yeah, horse barn.
Okay.
And there's two small stall riding arenas there, just north there. That's one idea, and then just backing that one as well.
And that dome, you said it's being retrofitted, where's that?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's, sorry,
it's on the south end of the house.
It's part of the.
So it's
it's
part of
still
the
real,
construction.
it is, yeah. And we do have I would say our construction and design team, and he could speak to the parking
Right
if
here
there are
on
more
the far
questions.
right.
But yeah, so that's why I call it the dome, because it's
Sure. It's just round. Right. Okay.
These drawings are enough, I don't need
Nope.
anybody else to talk about that.
All right. Unless there's any other questions for the applicant, we might call you back up.
Sure.
Okay.
We've got some other request forms here, but I am good with you guys for the moment.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
All right. So the next one I have Jeffrey and Jody Headley. If you could get sworn in first, please.
You swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes.
And just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jody Headley, and we are at 3698 Allward Road.
All right.
My name is Jeff Headley, obviously
Just
residing in
address,
the
sure.
same place.
Excellent, excellent.
We are directly abutting said property to the north. And tonight, we are also representing two of our neighbors that could not be here, Matt and Stephanie Buss, and Harold and Darlene Schultz. Matt and Stephanie Buss are directly to the east of the property.
Okay.
And Pamela and Dwayne, I'm sorry we're meeting in this format. You know, we did not know about this until a couple of days ago, which we got a letter from the zoning committee, and we're a little disappointed about that, as well as our neighbors. So we want to go over some of our reasons why we are opposed to this development.
Okay.
You know, and first and foremost, ourselves, our neighbors, you know, we bought our properties to be away from commercial, non-farming activities. If you look at the Headley's Mill, Allward Road, you know, Courtier Road, Cable Road, it is an area that is basically homesteads,
Mhm.
farms, and properties that, quite frankly, are secluded. And, you know, one of the reasons we bought the property was simply, you know, to have that seclusion, to enjoy everything that Dwayne and Pamela are talking about, opening up to other people that do not reside in that area. You know, our fellow neighbors, we, you know, we sought out to buy a piece of property that provided us with ample land, and upscale living. And the one that we anticipated would be away from, again, the commercial, non-commercial farming activities. So with this property that is being talked about, you know, it's putting us and our neighbors at risk. You know, why we all purchased that property in the first first place. And some of the things that we have a lot of concerns about, first and foremost, is the decreased safety that we would have as homeowners. You know, everyone who buys a home with the intent that they go in and they want a safe environment for their families. Buying into a residential neighborhood or buying into a neighborhood kind of where we are surrounded, you know, you want to know what your neighbors are. There's a reason for that. Opening up the property to a commercial venue that is open 7 days a week, people coming in, we have no sense of who those people are that are coming into this environment. From a standpoint, we all live within an area that has no set boundaries, no property lines. There are woods all around us.
Okay.
There is zero, consideration for people walking onto our property. We have cattle, the buses and us have got cattle. Those cattle that we have on there, unpredictable. If I've got somebody that is coming off of their property onto our property or even onto the bus's property, trying to pet our cattle, engage with our cattle, you know, that's a liability that we have got. It's a safety issue that we have got. You know, from the bus's standpoint, they've got 3 children under the age of 8. They live directly in eyesight of the barn, which is going to be retrofitted. You know, we live in an environment now where our kids in the area, our grandchild, they've got the ability to basically roam, do what kids should do, as well as our other neighbors. And now we're in a situation where instead of just knowing who our neighbors are, we've got people again coming into a residential area, which is not why we bought the property in the first place, that we have to be concerned about. The other thing I think that we have to take into consideration is I would love to see proof as to how this property is going to increase our property values instead of decreasing our property values. When you take a residential area that is upscale homes or even areas around that have got lots of land, and now all of a sudden you drop a commercial use right there in the middle of it, and especially in the heart of it, and especially in the area in which we are, we all live back off of the road, you know, a good 1,000, 1,500 feet, most of the homes, and it's all kind of clustered in that area. Now all of a sudden we've got a commercial use property right there. There is no way that someone can convince me that that's going to increase my property value in that area. And if someone says it will, I would love to know statistics as to show how it will. So clearly I'm concerned about our property value, our neighbors' property values. That's some of the things that I'm concerned with. The other things that I would say is that, you know, increased liability as a homeowner. Again, we have cattle, buses have cattle. Where's the liability now that falls on us when we have someone potentially coming into our property that we do not know, cannot control? I have an electric fence that is high powered that is running along their property line. What happens if someone walks over there, tries to pet my cattle or engage my cattle? They're electrocuted. They try to get into my fence or my paddock. Bus shares the same, you know, concern we do. Where's that liability lie? It falls on us. And all of a sudden, we have to increase our liability insurance simply because of the use of the property.
Okay.
You know, more importantly, disruption to our daily living. You think about this, if all of a sudden you have a situation in your neighborhood that opens up and is open from 6 a.m. Monday through Saturday until 8 p.m. and then Sunday 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Think of the disruption of all the families around there that we've got with a commercial entity there. That is pretty intense in terms of a change to our quality of life for which we bought into that property in the first place. And, you know, some of the questions I've got on this proposal, I really take offense to the fact that part of this proposal was Pamela and Dwayne talked to their neighbors. We were never talked to. never
Okay.
once. Buses had one conversation in passing that, oh, they were gonna buy Devin Bill Hoy's old home and maybe do some mediation. Never was it in the context of what it is now.
Okay. I couldn't speak to that. I mean, I just to be clear, because we're only here to talk about what's in front of us, so.
And, when an issue was brought up about no commercial farming has been done on the property, the original intent of the property when the Hoyts built the property was not to have commercial farming on it. It was to build a beautiful homestead where they could have a horse barn and they could have, some equine business, but it never was built in the first place. It was built as a very nice home
Okay.
and a community. I think some things that, I would like to say just in terms of closing is, about 7 years ago, Matt and Stephanie Buss stood in front of you guys asking for a variance for the use of their home to put in a event center, and it was denied. And it created a lot of issues in our part of the neighborhood. And, 7 years on, they're glad that it was denied because it enabled them to shift and go to a different space where they've been wildly successful.
Sure.
And they look at it now and they say, the disruption it would have caused to the neighborhood was pretty intense.
Okay. And I couldn't speak to that. I wasn't on that board.
Right.
I don't think any of us were. But I do appreciate your sentiments. So.
Yeah, and what I would like to say, also is, you guys handled the zoning ordinance for the golf course just across the street. You did a great job in restricting what could be done on that property to preserve the surrounding properties around us and our property values. And I think it'd be a real shame if you backpedal on what you did with that golf course and allow a commercial use, when it's
Understood.
right there in the heart of us.
Understood. Thank you.
Look, that anything, honey?
Yes, on my, some of the things that I have are, well, I have a couple of questions. One of the first things that comes to my mind is lighting. We haven't talked about lights. If you're gonna have a parking lot and you're gonna have something that's, open when it's still dark, clearly there's gonna be lighting. What is that gonna look like?
Okay.
Obviously that's gonna change where we are. We are, I guess, what you say is north. I don't know.
Yeah, you're
We're
off
just
Allward. Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we go up that driveway and then the buses are
Sure.
right below us.
Okay.
On the other one there, yeah. So, I appreciate the vision. I think it sounds wonderful. Of course, I'm gonna say, not in my backyard. It's not really what I want. I don't,
Understood.
the thought of something being open all the time and not knowing really how the place is also gonna, is there a gate up front? Like, who's to say who can come in and out of the property? If you have 30 spots, that everything seems to say we're not gonna have any more than 15 people, but I mean, that's 30 parking spots and I
Okay.
don't really know what that is for. I guess the other, it's just, where does it stop, right? You live in you're in this,
Sure.
what we think is a tranquil, it's our serenity. We go sit out back and it's quiet and peaceful and lovely and you hear nothing. It's going to change.
Okay.
So for us, it's just
And it's,
something that we're just,
Right.
Well,
Well,
just learning about it, we're still trying to wrap our head around it, but
Sure. No, and I appreciate your sentiment. I mean, I can understand where you're coming from. It sounds like the applicant's trying to address some of these comments tonight, so we'll see. I've got some other applicants here, so unless there's anything else you wanted to add, I'm gonna,
nope.
just out of respect for their time, I'll let them come up and we'll see what we can address.
okay, thank you.
All right, so I've got a couple more here. Is there a Stephanie, is it Dugan?
Yes.
All right, if you'd like to go ahead and come on up and get sworn in, please.
My husband too, John.
That's fine. You guys can both get sworn in. That's all right.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
I do.
All right, if you could just state your name and address, please.
My name is John Dugan, 10813 Hollow Road.
Okay.
Stephanie Dugan, 10813 Hollow Road.
Yeah, I would, in all due respect for the applicants, I think the previous speaker said a lot for what I wanted to speak to.
Okay.
But let me reiterate, I'm usually a live and let live kind of guy.
Sure.
But this is bringing a whole new set of things into a very quiet, tranquil neighborhood. We just recently moved here a year ago out of Reynoldsburg, who was
Sure.
zoned into a whole different place than we bought into.
Okay.
And we don't want that. Okay, we don't want they talk about the lights and the security and that all goes along with it. Not in my backyard. I know you hesitated against that, but that's unfortunately the way we have to look. Safety, security. We're gonna have grandkids soon. We got 4+ acres that they can run around with because we know the people over here and we know the people over there, and the creek goes over here and we know those people. Okay, and you can't tell me the people that come in for 1 hour a week, and yeah, it's only 15, but if they're a successful business, it could be up to 400 or 500 people totally transversing through our backyard. Okay, and that's, I know, more of an emotional than a business thing, but it's a real thing. And the whole slippery slope thing.
Okay.
What's going to happen? Okay, so I don't know. I know there's some speakers with more prepared statements. I'm just coming up to express
Sure.
my serious concerns about this business.
No, and we appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. So you're talking about rezoning and
Well, not to cut you off, I just want to be clear. We're not rezoning this.
Okay.
So
it's still considered agriculture.
this is the zoning as it's currently in place. It's still going to be the same. What this application is today is that this is a use variance. So
Okay.
rather,
Gotcha.
the reason it's happening that way is because it would make more sense. We're trying to decide whether or not we want to approve this specific application.
Okay.
So if anything changes outside of the scope of what we've been presented today in our packet, it's a whole new process.
And who enforces that?
The city.
So they decide to change and
So if they decide to do
make it
anything else,
more,
yeah.
if there's more than 30, 40 parking spots, they have to come back. And who is going to enforce that if that's not done?
The planning
I
and
guess.
zoning department.
Okay.
Which gets to that slippery slope because things change. Okay, and it won't be necessarily the same people that are sitting there here today. So yeah,
Well, and just again, not to cut you off, just
I
again,
understand.
just to be clear, this is for this specific applicant. So if this business gets sold off in any shape or form, we're back to square zero. It's back to residential, and that's again.
right. But if a similar business wants to do it 2 houses away and there's a pre-existing, you did it, why didn't you do it for me? That's the slippery slope thing. Okay,
And that's why we're having these discussions.
right, and that's why we've got to do it because now it'll say, well, you did it
Right.
to us because of some
Right.
thing.
No.
Okay,
Right.
and that's not, so I understand and I really respect, I don't understand the business that they're
Sure.
doing. I mean, personally, it's a little out there for me,
Fair
but
enough.
that's their business and have at it, but I don't.
Nope,
want it
and I
done.
respect that. Nope, I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure we were
Thank
speaking
you.
the same language. Thank you.
So, okay, this is the reason why we moved to Pataskala.
Right.
And we wanted a part of the country, but close to the city.
Right.
Okay? And we have joked with our family that we have more bicycle riders on our road, Hollow Road, than we do cars.
Mm-hmm.
So once these people start coming, and it's very dark at night and we have a lot of deer, we have cattle.
No, and
We don't
yeah.
have that, but
I grew up around the corner. I totally
love
get you.
that
Yeah,
people do in our neighborhood.
sure.
So I'm very emotional about it and I don't mean to be. I want to be smart about it too. And I do understand the business and wellness and holistics. But I think there's a better area
Sure.
somewhere else to do
Okay.
that, like an event center.
All right. And thank you.
Okay. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
All right, looks like I've got two more here. So is Alice Markley here? You could go ahead and get sworn in, please.
Yes. Do you swear or affirm the testimony about the truth and the truth you have and the truth you got?
I do.
And then just state your name and address. Thank you.
My name is Alice Markley. My address is 3776 Headley's Mill Road. I am here representing the two other residents that live in that address with me, as well as our neighbors, Jim and Nancy Ellison, who own the properties 3794 and 3838 Headley's Mill Road. I've been a resident of Headley's Mill Road for almost 30 years now. And I have a master's of environment and natural resources from Ohio State University. And I would like to make it clear that we do oppose this application. Some of the issues that we specifically are concerned about would be increased traffic, the increased concerns of safety and security, as was addressed by Mr. Headley, waste disposal, potentially introducing or drawing in more vermin, such as the coyotes that we've already had attacking outdoor animals and pets in the area. Light pollution. I know that they stated that they were not planning to do additional lighting or things like that, but you are talking about a business that is supposedly going to be open past 8 p.m. I'd like to point out that we all arrived here at 6:30 p.m. and it was pitch black out. And they're planning to have a parking lot that can have 30 cars. They will be required to have some form of business or industrial lighting for that to function. And that can cause light pollution, which can degrade our experiences outside, as well as affect local wildlife. Again, coming from that perspective of a master of environment and natural resources, light pollution does affect our birds, and it affects the other wildlife sort of in the area.
Okay.
We also have concern about the presence of a business affecting the property values of our agricultural and residential area, as again was discussed by several of the people who came up already. And we are also concerned about this setting a precedent for businesses to come into this area, also getting variances. And I know that we talked about or discussed that this variance would be for this specific application, and if they sold the property, it would go back to, ground zero sort of thing. They'd have to do another application. However, if there are modifications made to the property that make it less desirable for another resident, the chances are statistically that it will be sold for continued business use. So there is that concern from our perspective that this is setting a precedent both for this property specifically, but also for other properties on Headley's Mill Road. To speak to it from a slightly more cultural perspective, if I may, we are concerned that this would be inviting an entity into our community. Now, allow me to explain my use of that word. I know that the applicants
If you
are
could
here.
address
and
us,
they-
please. Thank
yes,
you.
and they are people, and I respect that. But a business is a legal entity, and especially from the perspective of environmental law, which are laws that have rigidly protected much of our agricultural activity out here. And from that legal perspective, a business is potentially going to carry more weight, more influence, and more money than us residents. And a business has different values than our culture out here. For example, a business may not appreciate that we are in a gun discharge zone and may have motivation to attempt to change that. Or there is a infamous walking path plan that has been attempted to be zoned multiple times throughout the many years, even prior to my residence in Headley's Mill. There have been plans to attempt to eminent domain land along the South Fork of Licking River to create a walking path. This has been resisted multiple times. It has gone off the table. It is not currently on the table, but I bring it up because this business, again, has the perk of walking paths. So if potentially something like that were to come up onto the table again, this business as a legal entity would have motivation to value or push for that, where the residents and the community may not value that and may not want that. So there is a concern that functionally we would be inviting a bully into our midst.
And not to cut you off, but again, the thing just to be clear, I can't speak to anything that'll happen. I can't speak to anything that's happened before.
Mhm.
I can't speak to anything that'll happen after.
Yes, of course.
Because this, as much as it could happen, it could also not. So, and I'm not going to get into, things that we aren't presenting in front of us today. So really, I have to unfortunately keep it to the scope of what's in our packet today. But I do appreciate your concern.
Thank you very much. Yes, I do want to keep it within the scope. Just to be clear that this is what our concerns
Sure,
are and what we are facing, and why it is distressing for us,
Sure.
especially since the residents of Headley's Mill have had a history of attempting to push back against things like this in the past. And we do want to make it clear that this is not in our best interest, and we would really appreciate it if, as the zoning board, that you help us to protect our values and our community.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And I've got one more. I'm going to butcher this. I'm sorry. Lisa Rajay? Rajay. Thank you. If you could go ahead and just come on up and get sworn in.
You swear or affirm the testimony about the case, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, thank you.
Well, I will keep this
If you could
fast.
state your name and address
Lisa
first.
Rajayi, my address is 137 Green Hollow Road.
Okay.
Southwest. My previous address was 3698 Alward Road, Southwest. So I
Okay.
do know the area
Sure.
quite well.
Perfect.
We moved, and we're also business owners here in Pataskala, so we do have a perspective
Sure.
of business and residential.
Okay.
I really am against it. We are all against it. I think we could obviously come to terms with that here. The reason that we live where we live is it's a piece of paradise.
Sure.
We are very deliberate about why we live there, and I think everybody has said such. It's a very unique community, and we want to keep it that way. There's a place for running a business,
Mhm.
and there's a place for privacy. And the reason that the homeowners live there is we do value privacy.
Sure.
If you know my current property, you know that it's big enough to have a polo field.
Okay.
And we could certainly have had people come in, cars come through, but out of respect for the privacy of our community, we chose not to do that.
Okay.
And I think it's important. I think it's important that we respect our community, respect the children that run free. Our children live there and they ran around freely.
Okay.
And we were the people 7 years ago that went up against the buses to oppose what he wanted to do.
Okay.
And, that's
Sure.
really what, we want to say here.
Okay.
We wish them well, just not in this location.
Sure.
It's a great thing that they want to do. We just don't want it here.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right. Thank you. Any other speakers on this application? All right. Hearing none, could I get the sequence back up, please? Yeah, give me access. All right. So you've heard the comments from the public. Is there anything you'd like to address? I believe, I know I've got a couple questions, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of state
Well,
your case.
Sure. I guess at first, Mr. Headley's comments, I don't want to do a tit for tat and him
Sure.
speaking
No
to someone
worries.
else, but our text messages, there were more than one conversation with the buses. So I just
Nope.
thank you for
We're
that.
good.
Definitely, we are would work with staff on any, again, concerns with the parking, as we said.
Okay.
We have lighting already at our house, and so our house is lit up, lining the driveway. So I think that, I mean, that's existing, so
So you're not planning to add any further
any further.
lighting to this new
Well,
property?
we'd want to, that new driveway up
Would
into that
have,
is not,
okay.
yeah, correct, that would be lit.
Okay.
And then there's lighting on the house,
Mhm.
light fixtures, so that would be helping to light and,
Barn.
yeah, lights on the barn as
Right.
well, existing. All these lights are on, they're probably on now unless the bulbs are burning, so.
So
But
other
I don't
than,
know if you wanted to add it, but please.
oh, no, just other than the driveway, the addition of that driveway lighting, it's gonna be all the existing lighting that's there currently.
That's correct. And the house is the house.
Right,
Again, as the plans had showed,
Right.
and we have an appraisal for our insurance and everything that's it's over almost $2.5 million.
sure.
Because of all the upgrades and things that we're
Okay.
putting into it. So we're certainly, and we live next door, so safety is paramount. Literally, we're the neighbor, and our other neighbors, the neighbors. So we're absolutely cognizant of property values and safety, and it's paramount to us because we are residents as well, and we do want it in our backyard.
Okay. Excellent, excellent.
You know, and I think the other thing, safety is of utmost importance.
Sure.
And it made it sound like they're just going to be a public and people are just going to show up. No, this is appointment based. This is membership based. We're going to know exactly who's going to be there. If they're not going to be venturing outside the building because the house is a treatment center for yoga, meditation,
Sure.
sound bowls. The
Okay.
barn is where you're going to have treatments as well. And it's not a free for all where people can just run around and enjoy the walking paths that we have or be on the property. And it's to enjoy the woods and meditate.
Keep the woods.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we found our drug. I found a white oak that's about 250 years old on the property, and that's the mother tree of the property, and that's
Okay.
something we want to celebrate.
Sure. Excellent. Okay. All right. I have some questions, but I wanted to give the board a chance to ask anything
Go
they'd like.
What kind of treatment do you anticipate? What kind of people, members?
Treatments, so like as maybe holistic is one of the ways to put it. So yoga.
I'm not asking for the remedy, but
Oh, sorry. That's what we view treatment as. These are modalities. So like a sound bath, sound healing. Those are that we call them modalities or.
So I think
Yeah.
what he's getting at
Sorry.
is just, we're not, because I mean, I think, I can speak, as somebody, a homeowner myself, there's a certain connotation that comes with the word treatment, regardless of
Okay,
the administration of it. I don't, based on what yoga is not necessarily, somebody coming in for drug rehab. That seems to be very clear, but,
Right.
Is this more like physical therapy? Is this more
Massage, physical
luxurious
therapy.
retreat? Almost, I don't
You
want
could
to call
say
it a spa,
spa-esque, but not a spa
No
because we don't do facials.
Doctor services, no prescriptions,
Right, no.
anything like that. This
Okay.
is, and there'll be
Is that?
infrared sauna. You're familiar with cold plunge,
Right.
Those
Okay.
type of treatments. We view those as treatments. I know
So not as
the
treatment
common
as in, yeah.
vernacular is treatment means you're going to a doctor and
Right.
taking care of you. Treatment means a lot of different things.
Sure.
So in our world, and what we believe is that when I go out and I meditate in the woods, I'm treating myself.
It's,
A
so
holistic
it's
healing.
relaxation more than
Correct. That's a good, yes.
fixing something.
we heard safety was brought up 3 times. So that needs to be defined. Are you targeting mental health? Are you targeting addiction?
No,
No.
we are not.
Okay,
That
great,
is correct. We are not doing that.
great. That addresses that.
Okay. I guess one of the questions, did you guys have anything? I had a question, but I didn't want to cut you off. As far as access is concerned, so the driveway to your property is the shared driveway between the Queens, your house, and then this property in question. Is that driveway gated or?
We do have a gate that goes up to our house and to 3945.
Okay.
So we've got it open because we have people delivering and
Sure.
sometimes.
There are a lot of Amazon deliveries. And,
Sure.
and the gate, we've spent actually several $1,000s trying to get it because it's a solar powered and then there's some electrical issues. So we've actually tried to get it to work, but
Okay.
Theirs needs to be, I think, new wiring, electrical rerun.
And then, I mean, as far as the scope of growth is concerned, I mean, what do you guys see as the 5-year plan for this? I mean, obviously the hope is that it's successful. You guys maybe open up locations elsewhere, you know, so I don't know what that looks like for you guys, but I think part of the impression I'm getting from the general public is that, you know, if you guys are successful, this could go from something from 15 to 30 to more and more and more. And, you know, the comment of slippery slope has been brought up is, you know, how do you see yourself growing in this location? Or is it more, if this goes well, we'll look elsewhere and do other properties as well?
To answer the first part, when we wrote this, it was kind of our pie in the sky when it came to hours and
Sure.
employees. So it's certainly not going to start off that way.
Sure.
We'd love it if it were, but not many small businesses do.
Sure.
Our plan would not to be to expand or do anything more on the property. Again, the reason we are purchasing this and we call it our dream beyond a dream, to keep it the landscaping, the trees, and the ravines and the aesthetics the way it is. So there aren't more homes that are being built on it, or sewer and water, an electrical run, sewer and water, I guess, run from there. So that is the plan, just to keep and
what it's-
preserve. Yes,
right,
that's
okay.
correct. And it would be great if, I don't know, 5 or
Sure,
10 years, if we
sure.
could franchise
Yeah.
it or somewhere else.
Something like that.
I mean, that would be wonderful if somebody wanted to emulate it in another state or something.
Just want to say why you're up here. Again, there's many ways to frame what their concerns are. This is a bit of a Trojan horse for the unknown. We can't get into that. That's the unknown.
Right.
But what I'm seeing is not for a lack of effort, but there is a lack of communication with everybody else on that map right there. Okay? They've all had a piece to say about this. So that said, if there are bridges that collectively can be, you know, if you bridge that gap, I want you to keep in mind that would be in everybody's invested interest, because if you want to do this, minus the monetizing it, et cetera, you're going to do it. This is your property. So that can happen, you know, no matter what. That said, this is the place to bridge that gap. This is the place where you all can sit at a table and come up with an agreement yourselves, maybe, if one's possible, something amicable. Okay, and that's what this is for. So I say that to say, maybe you have to have another conversation. Some people were a little caught off guard, and maybe that will sway some opinions.
Yeah, and Mr. Coleman, I think I said that at the beginning when I heard there was a letter that went around.
Yeah, an anonymous letter that blindsided us as well, and we should have done better at communicating. We tried, and it wasn't for a lack of effort.
Yeah, and I would, like as Pamela said, we should have done better, and that's our goal, is to sit down and have a conversation. And this was a great way to meet neighbors, unfortunately. And so, Jeff, I know we texted, but it's not the way we wanted to meet. We talked via that little device, and that's something that part of we're out there is like, there's no phone usage at all when you come out, because this is about tranquility. But Mr. Coleman, thank you for that, and we'd love to sit down and just have a conversation and see if we can come to any sort of agreement or alleviate concerns.
Sure. Okay. Any other comments while we've got them? While they're stuck.
No.
All right. You guys can go ahead and sit down.
Thank you.
We might call you back up, but for now, you're free. Well. Any comments?
Beyond that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some things that need to be hashed out between the neighbors and the applicant.
If you take away all the subjective stuff, I mean, there is an existing precedent for why everybody lives where they live.
I think that's kind of where I'm thinking too. I think there's an existing precedent from 7 years previous in the area.
Well, everything's a precedent, as we talked about signage and everything else.
It's
just-
true.
It is,
Right.
it is a real thing.
That's how I see it.
Okay. So,
Should we,
well,
Findings of fact. and-
Yeah. all right, we'll move into findings of fact and see where we get. All right, so findings of fact for VA-24-021, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property. I'm going to say yes in this. It's an improvement to the property in some shape or form. B, whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibit the property being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. I would say those, not physical circumstances, because it's not really a physical development. This isn't really a area variance. This is just a use.
Right.
So I'm going to say no here. No, there are not. Whether the variance requested is substantial, I'm going to say yes in this case because it's, yeah.
Agree.
D, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance.
They spoke for themselves,
Yeah,
that's a yes.
okay. I'm good with that. Yes, there. E, whether the variance, if granted, will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property. Since there's not really any scope, since the scope of the project, in my opinion, isn't changing any of the physical characteristics other than the addition of a parking lot, it's not really affecting the adjacent properties other than the character of the neighborhood potentially.
It's a use, so.
Well, they're,
Yeah,
The use.
use is there too. You're right.
and that's what they testified
Well,
to.
it's not gonna permanently, if you wanna use literal words,
Substantial, yes. Permanently, no.
yeah.
That's the subjective part about it.
Whether the variance, if granted, will substantially or permanently impair. I'll say yes, just because it will substantially, the use, I think, is the key in this case, unless you guys have some opposition.
No, I think that's fair. I think it's accurate.
Okay. F, whether the variance, if granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare. According to the public has spoken, I feel. I'm going to say.
That's different than D and E.
Right.
I'm gonna say no on F.
Yeah, I guess public welfare, you're right. No for F. Are we good with that?
I am.
G, whether the variance, if granted, will adversely affect the delivery of government services, shouldn't have any effect. H, whether the property owner purchases the subject property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction, I'm going to say yes, considering they have just closed on the property as of Friday. Here we are. I, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method than variance. I think it very well could be. They could rezone or they could just keep it as is. J, whether the variance, if granted, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the requirement at issue. I'm going to say yes for that because otherwise they couldn't do what they're doing. And then K, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. Yeah, I agree. And then we've got the use findings of fact, which is A, The applicant/owner created the alleged hardship. Did the applicant/owner create the alleged hardship?
Yep.
Did not or did? No, they did not.
The hardship, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had it backward.
B, the board finds that the application is primarily made for the purposes of convenience or profit. I'm going to say yes because it's a business.
Doesn't have to be monetized.
Yeah. And then C, a substantial ground offered in support of an application for a use variance is the existence of other non-conforming use of neighboring land structures or buildings in the same zoning district or other zoning districts. Substantial ground offered in support of the existence of other non-conforming. So do they have merit, basically, is how I read that.
Say no.
I would agree.
I would say no.
Yeah, let's put no. All right, so for findings of fact for application VA-24-021, I have yes for the A, C, D, E, H, I, and J on the area part of the findings of fact, and then no on B, F, G, and K on the first part. And then on the use side of things, on the use findings of fact, we have no for A and C and yes for B. All right, is there any other discussion?
No.
Nope, hearing none. Could I get a motion?
I move to approve the use variance pursuant to section 1211.07B for variance application VA-24-021 with the following conditions. The applicant shall address all comments from the planning and zoning staff. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and the Licking County Building Code Department within 1 year of the date of approval.
All right, I've got a motion. Could I get a second?
Second.
All right, I've got a second. Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Cooper?
No.
Mr. Coleman?
No.
Mr. Jimison?
No.
Mr. Vanderian?
No.
All right. Application for VA-24-021 has been denied. You can get with staff for next steps, and best of luck to you. You're welcome to stay if you'd like, but you're not required to. Thank you. Yeah. All right, we'll give everybody a minute or so to clear out, and then we'll move on to the next one. Thank you for you guys who are still going. We appreciate it. Yeah. That's on record now. All right. Oh, okay. I'll wait till Lisa hits back. Okay, where's my sheet? There's all my stuff. Okay. Where'd my agenda go? There it is. All right. I'll wait for it.
in here. Call Wayne over here. Can you get him over here?
Call who?
Mr. Coleman.
Oh, Mr. Coleman. We're gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on to VA-24-022. Jack, if you could go ahead.
Of course, so location of this one is at 711 Woodington Drive. Acreage is 0.27. They're requesting approval of 3 variances from Pataskala Code for a private swimming pool. First, to allow for a pool deck to be approached 2 feet, 6 inches from the required setback. Second, to allow for a pool fence that is less than the minimum 5 feet required. And lastly, to allow for a pump and filter installation to be less than required 20 feet from the property line. So if you take a look here, this is the property in question. They got Woodington Drive just to the south here. So the property is lot 371 at Brooks Edge, section 10, Plan Development District. It's occupied by a single family home, concrete patio and a shed and backyard. Access to Woodington Drive is to the south. There's a 30-foot wide no-build zone on the rear of the property over top of a 30-foot drainage easement. So those run concurrent. There's a 5-foot wide utility easement on the west side property line. So here's a look at the existing conditions of the property. So you see you got their house, existing patio in the rear, and the shed back here. Proposal is they want to install a 420 square foot in-ground swimming pool with a 5 feet concrete pool deck on all sides. That is also a 9-foot by 14-foot pad on the west side of the pool with a 6-foot walkway connecting to the existing patio. The pool deck edge will be 10 feet from the east side property line, 15 feet from the west side property line, and 10 feet from the utility easement there, and 37 feet 6 inches from the north property line, but only 7 foot 6 inches from the edge of the northern easement. So here's a look at the site plan that's proposed by applicants. We got the pool here, a little concrete pad addition with the walkway going to their existing patio that's here. It'll only be 7 feet 6 inches away from the edge of this 30-foot no-build zone and easement here on the north side of the property. So section 129702B2 states that all pools, including appurtenances thereto, such as decks, walkways, etc., shall be a minimum of 10 feet from a property line or an easement. Pad and pump filter is located on the west side of the existing shed, proposed at 11 feet from the west side property line. Section 129702B2 also states that the pump filter installation shall be a minimum of 20 feet from any property line. So here's another look at the pool that was submitted with the application there. So we've got the pool here, kind of situated in the backyard. Proposal is there's also an existing 4-foot tall fence around the rear perimeter of the property pursuant to section 129702B4 states that swimming pools shall be surrounded by a fence no less than 5 feet in height. So the applicant would like to keep their existing fence as is, hence the request for that variance. So in the narrative statement, the applicant stated they believe the requests are not substantial, would not alter the character or repair development of adjacent properties, and would not adversely affect the delivery of government services. They also stated they were not aware of the zoning restrictions at the time the property was purchased. Also in the narrative, they say that regarding the equipment variance, the applicant stated that modern pumps are much quieter and that they believe the 4-foot tall fence is sufficient as the Ohio Revised Code only requires a 4-foot tall fence for public pools. Part of our review, staff following comments, again, 129702B2 states that pools, including any walks, paved areas, or other appurtenances thereto, shall be located no closer than 10 feet to the property line or easement. So it's proposed at 7 feet 6 inches from the north easement no build zone. The request is for a reduction of 2 feet 6 inches or a 25% decrease. Second variance is from the same section, but for the pump and filter installations that are required to be no closer than 20 feet to a property line, currently proposed at 11 feet from the west side property line. So the request is for a decrease of 9 feet, 45%. And the final variance is from section 129702B4. Pools in the entire property shall be walled or fenced to prevent unauthorized access, with such wall or fence being no less than 5 feet in height. So the applicant would like to use their existing 4-foot high fence. So that requests for a reduction of 1 foot or 20% from the requirement. So we reviewed the other aspects of the site plan, don't have any other comments. We'll need to get a swimming pool permit if these variances are approved. Didn't receive any comments from any other departments or agencies. surrounding the properties to the northeast, south, and west are all zoned plan development district, and they're all single-family homes. There are your findings of fact for an area variance. The court's also put it in the staff report there, so should the board choose to approve the applicant's request upon condition may be considered that the applicant address all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and Lincoln County within 1 year of the date of approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any public comment?
Haven't received that.
Any other questions for staff?
No concerns from 5 feet to 4 feet on that fence.
So is it just the rear fence? The other side fences are?
We can comment on that.
One moment, we'll call you up.
Like I can answer.
No, you're good. We'll get you in a sec.
I don't know if that's something you can hear.
Let the applicant.
Okay.
I believe it's 4 feet around the entirety, but
Okay.
And so the no build zones because there's utilities and stuff running through there currently, or just because
Drainage.
drainage?
mostly drainage, I would say. Yeah, it's 30-foot easement, no build zone.
And so if something happens and they have to go in there and dig in that and they have to get into that concrete pad, that's not close enough. That's on the homeowner, not on the company, correct?
That's correct. Typically, the 10 foot from an easement, that if there's a water line or a sewer line running through that, and you have to dig, then the area of influence starts to spread out and then it could impact that. But from my understanding, that's only a drainage easement, so there's no physical infrastructure in that location.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. If there's no other questions for staff, I've got a couple speaker request forms from, looks like Nat Langle and then Dan and Heather Kerber. Anybody want to go first?
We can go together.
That's fine. Yeah, just go ahead and get sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm your testimony about to give us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Yes.
All right, and then name and address for the record.
Dan Kerber, 711 Woodington Drive.
Heather Kerber, 711 Woodington Drive.
Matt Langle, 7749 Blacks Road.
All right, so you've heard the presentation made by Jack. You should have also received a copy of the report prior to the meeting. Is there anything you'd like to add, edit, anything like that?
Well, we can answer the questions.
Sure,
that we
that's
kinda
fine. Go
heard.
ahead. Yep, go ahead.
The fence, the 4-foot fence is the rear, and it's actually 4 foot and about 6.
Yeah.
It's just the rear on each side. It's 6 foot.
Sure.
And then we have connecting, it's about 4.5 feet
Okay.
on the sides.
Okay.
The back easement, that is strictly drainage.
Right.
Because it drains horribly.
Okay.
So we know that. There isn't any, there's utility, but it's behind.
Further back.
It's actually behind our fence now.
Okay.
Those are the 2 questions that we heard.
Sure. No, and just my main thing would just be so you're aware that it's a drainage easement. Doesn't sound like we.
Yeah.
And
And we kind of
for whatever reason.
Even when we put our fence up, we were aware that if they had to get in there, we'd have to tear our fence out. Also, kind of the reason we're wanting the variance on the fence is because we have cover on it
Okay.
that supports 300 pounds.
Okay.
So when the pool's not in use, the pool is on lockdown.
Sure.
You can walk across it.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
And that's something actually that I was going to speak on.
Sure.
So International Pool and SWAT Code permits
Mm-hmm.
an automatic cover in lieu of a minimum 48-inch barrier,
Okay.
which they also have as well.
Sure.
I realize you guys, don't necessarily weigh on other municipalities, but
Right.
other municipalities that we work with, typically speaking, an automatic pool cover or a fence.
Okay.
In this instance, in Pataskala, that is not an option, but we have a 48-inch high fence.
Right.
And an automatic
And
pool
then,
cover.
okay. And then my only other question, were you aware of this requirement when you bought the property?
No, oh gosh, no. That was
Okay.
in
No, we just got to ask, so.
No, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
And just a real quick, I guess, statement about the pump pad and the 20-foot zoning regulation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to overstep in my statement, but
Sure.
as a guy who's lived in
Mhm.
the Pataskala area my entire life, and now I own a pool business in Pataskala. That's a little bit of an antiquated zoning regulation. And the reason why I say that is air conditioning, condensers, heat
Mhm.
pumps that are on modern houses
Mhm.
are pretty much the same decibels
Mhm.
in operation. And if you look at any modern housing
Right.
developments that we approve, they permit those to be on the side of the house, which typically only have about a 10-foot, side yard.
Mhm.
So when we talk about swimming pool equipment, we tend to like to put those right next to where those other utilities are at.
Right.
So we don't have multiple places where utilities are,
Mhm.
both from aesthetics, function, and an economical standpoint.
Right.
So it seems to make a lot
Right.
of sense
Okay.
to be able to put that closer to a property line
Sure.
when we already are doing that with other utilities.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Can you fix that, Scott?
It's on our list. The list is about 5 pages long.
Yeah. All right, well, you guys are free to sit down. We may call you back up, but I think we're good.
Can I make one last statement?
Yeah.
And maybe this is more for like a council meeting, but in regards to the 10-foot setback to an easement, my understanding of a setback to an easement, or my understanding of the legal term or definition of an easement, is that when an easement is set in place,
Mhm.
there is permitted access through that easement, but it is not beyond the easement. So by a zoning regulation identifying a setback from an easement for a structure, albeit perfectly allowed because it's a zoning regulation, but whoever is performing, service within the easement is not permitted outside of the easement to perform the work. All that work has to be inside of the easement. That's what the legal reasoning of the easement is for. So the other thing is, and I know I had it in the application, is that patios are identified as permissible to go up to an easement versus a pool having a regulation saying that we have to be a 10-foot setback.
Right.
In a fiberglass pool environment, I conservatively stated that 3 foot beyond 3 feet is no longer considered, structure of the pool. It's a
Sure.
patio.
Right.
So virtually the same thing as a standard
Yeah,
patio would
yeah,
be.
and that would be something you'd have to, that'd be more of a like you're saying,
Sure.
more of a council
Okay.
thing, but I appreciate the sentiment, so.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else, we'll go ahead and keep moving on here. All right, any other discussion on this one before I move to findings of fact?
I have none.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and dive in, hearing none. So findings of fact for VA-24-022. A, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property. I'm gonna say yes, it's an addition. B, whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that prohibit the property from being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, there are. That easement is kind of pushing in on their product. Pretty good with that.
Good with that.
C, whether the variance requested is substantial. I believe everything was below 50%. 45 is the highest. So I'm going to say no, it is not. D, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. I'm going to say no. Everybody's good with that?
Yep.
E, whether the variance, if granted, will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of the adjacent property. They're not going in the easement, they're just going up to it. I don't see how it's going to have really any effect.
Agreed.
So I'm going to say no, it will not. F, whether the variance, if granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare, should have zero effect. G, whether the variance, if granted, would adversely affect the delivery of government services, again, no effect. H, whether the property owner purchased the subject property with knowledge of the zoning restriction, they testified that they did not. I, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other means than variance. I think it could. They could probably find a way to build a smaller pool. J, whether the variance, if granted, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the requirement issue. I'm going to go ahead and say yes on that one.
Yeah.
And then K, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. And I would say yes. So for VA-24-022, I've got yes for A, B, I, J, and K, and then no for C, D, E, F, G, and H. Any further discussion? If not, could I get a motion?
Jeff, can you pull up the conditions? I move to approve a variance from section 1211.072 for variance application VA-24-022 with the following condition. Applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and the Licking County Building Code Department within 1 year of the date of approval.
All right, I've got a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jennison,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Dandridge.
Yes.
Motion is passed. Enjoy your pool. Thank you. All right. Down to one left. All right, so we are down to application VA-24-023. Jack, please.
Of course, so location of this is at 207 West Avenue Southwest. It's just 1.307 acres, currently zoned R20 medium density residential. They are requesting approval of a variance from section 1221.05D4 to allow for construction of an accessory building on a lot without a principal structure. So if you look up here, parcel outlined in yellow is the subject parcel. So it's lot 13A, which was a replat of lots to the Elmwood allotment in Blanch's East Broad Edition that was approved in October of 2022. It's a dual frontage lot. So on west, they have West Avenue Southwest to the east and an unimproved right of way on Connor Avenue to the west. There's no existing structures on site. Here's a look at the existing conditions. So again, it's dual frontage. The only actual improved right of way is West Avenue here. And then Connor Avenue, there's a bunch of asphalt millings back there. But it was never constructed as a public road nor accepted for public use, so it's an unimproved right of way. So the proposal is to construct a 30 by 30 garage on the lot, 10 feet from the north side property line, 141 feet 8 inches from the West Avenue frontage, and 450 feet from the Connor Avenue frontage. So pursuant to section 1221.05D4, accessory buildings may not be built on lots without first having a principal structure, a home present. So here's a look at the site plan that was submitted by the applicant. So West Avenue, which over here on the right, will be to the top on this. Obviously, they've shown their house here, but the future house, but we're not considering it today. We're only considering the structure back here that they proposed. In the narrative statement that was submitted by the applicant, they stated they intend to build a home on the lot in late spring, summer 2025. And building a garage first would allow them to move personal items and vehicles from the existing home to get it ready for sale. We also believe the requested variance is not substantial. They would not have a negative effect on surrounding properties. Part of our review, staff would offer the following comments. Again, section 1221.05D4 states that an accessory building shall not be located on a lot without first having a principal structure. As there's not an existing home on the lot, variance is required. So again, there's a frontage on 2 right-of-ways, West Avenue to the east, Connor Avenue to the west. All structures have to meet the front yard setback from a property line abutting the public right-of-way. In R20, that's 50 feet, so they're going to exceed that on both sides. No worries about that there. And then Connor Avenue Southwest is an unimproved right-of-way. Although there is asphalt millings laid down, that was not done to public spec. It was never accepted for public use, so any access to the property has to come from West Avenue. We don't have any other comments. I didn't receive any comments from any other departments or agencies. Surrounding properties to the north, you've got zoned ag, currently used for agriculture. To the east, south, and west are all R20 as well. To the east, you've got a vacant lot, but to the south and west are existing single-family homes. Findings of fact for an area variance or your staff report there, of course. So should the board choose to approve the applicant's request, the following conditions may be considered. You get all the permits from the city, the building department within 1 year of the approval. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for staff?
No, sir.
I have none.
All right, do we have Mr. Henry? You could just go ahead and get sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Excellent. And then if you could just get your name and address on the record, please.
Okay, my name is Roger Henry Sr., and this is my wife Delphine Henry. Do you want a current address or Pataskala address? Our Pataskala address is 207 West Street, but our current address is 510 Dover Pond Drive in Black Lake, Ohio.
Okay, well, we got it one way or the other.
We got all of it.
All right, well, so you've heard the presentation made today. You should have also received a copy of the report presented before the meeting today. Is there anything you'd like to add, edit, change, clarify?
Not really. Like you said, we're just going to put, put some vehicles out of the way. It'll be lit. I've worked with an electrician on putting solar power out there.
Okay.
So we say if you put solar power and some solar cameras with 5G, you can watch it, make sure everything's good. And we're already working with the people who we're going to have build the house. We've already talked with the builder and all that. So everything's in place. It's just getting things off of our current so we can get to the next.
Okay. Did you guys buy this property with knowledge of this requirement?
No.
Okay. We just have to ask. Nobody,
that,
most of the time it's no, but. All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
All right. You guys can go ahead and take a seat then. All right. Any discussion?
It just sounds like a
Seems pretty
phasing
straightforward.
thing. Yep.
If not, hearing no other discussion, I'm going to go ahead and move forward to findings of fact. A, whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or if there can be a beneficial use of the property. I'm going to say yes. B, whether there are unique physical circumstances or conditions that will prohibit the property from being developed in strict conformity with the zoning regulations such that a variance is necessary to enable the reasonable use of the property. I'm going to say yes.
Yeah, it's just that road in the back that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll say no. Yeah, you're right. Whether the variance requested is substantial, we'll say, I mean, it's all or nothing, so.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say yes. D, whether the essential character of the neighborhood would be substantially altered or the adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. I'm going to say no.
Agree.
E, whether the variance, if granted, will substantially or permanently impair the appropriate use or development of adjacent property. I'll say no. F, whether the variance, if granted, will be detrimental to the public welfare. I think, again, no. G, whether the variance, if granted, would adversely affect the delivery of government services. Should have no effect. H, whether the property owner purchased the subject property with knowledge of the zoning restrictions. They testified they did not. I, whether the property owner's predicament can be obviated through some other method than variance. I would say yes.
Wait.
J, whether the variance, if granted, will represent the minimum variance that will afford relief and represent the least modification possible of the requirement at issue. Let's say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then K, whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance.
I think so.
Yeah, I'd agree. All right, so for VA-24-023, I have yes for A, C, I, J, and K. No for B, D, E, F, G, and H. Could I get a motion, please, if there's no other discussion?
I move to approve a variance from section 1221.05 D4 for variance application VA-24-023 with the following condition. The applicant shall obtain all necessary permits from the city of Pataskala and the Licking County Building Code Department within 1 year of the date of approval.
I'll second that.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Jemison,
Yes.
Mr. Vandrian,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Thank you. Your application has been approved.
Thank you.
Enjoy. All right, so that is the last application before the board today. I'm going to go ahead and we've got some findings of fact to approve here, and just bear with me, I got to reorder myself here. All right. I will move to approve the findings of fact for application VA-24-012. Second. Second.
Second.
Roll, please.
Mr. Vandrian,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Jemison.
Yes. All right. Then I've got findings of fact. I will move to approve findings of fact for VA-24-020. Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Motion and a second. Could I get roll?
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jemison,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Vandrian.
Yes.
All right. Then I've got findings of fact for VA-24-021. I move to approve those findings of fact as discussed today.
Second.
Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jemison,
Yes.
Mr. Vandrian.
Yes.
All right. I move to approve VA-24-022, those findings of fact as discussed today.
Second.
Motion and a second. Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Jemison,
Yes.
Mr. Vandrian,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
All right. And then finally, I move to approve findings of fact for VA-24-023.
Second.
Motion and a second. Could I get roll, please?
Mr. Vandrian,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jemison.
Yes. All right. Findings of fact for tonight's meeting are approved. Next on the agenda, I move to approve the absence of Mr. Coleman from the November 12th regular meeting. Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Could I get roll?
Mr. Coleman,
Abstain.
Mr. Jemison,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Vandrian.
Yes.
All right. That excuse has been approved. And then finally, I've got everybody should have received a copy from the November 12th meeting. Does anybody have any additions, deletions, edits they would like to be proposed? Hearing none, I move to approve the November 12th regular meeting minutes. Could I get a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Could I get roll?
Mr. Vandrian,
Yes.
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Jemison.
Yes. All right. That minutes from the November 12th meeting are approved. Is there any other business to be brought before the board today?
No, sir.
No, sir. Excellent. So I move to adjourn our meeting to Tuesday, January 14th of 2025.
Happy New Year.
Could I get roll?
I
Oh, who's second?
second,
I thought we had-
second.
Third?
Mr. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Vandrian,
Yes.
Mr. Jemison,
Yes.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Meeting adjourned.
Sometimes